Morning, everyone. My name is Amir Harel. I'm Managing Director for Zetes UK. We are here today to speak a little bit about the connected supply chain. So, who we are. Zetes, we have mainly two divisions. So one of them is what we would classify as the people ID. So we are doing a lot of the ID manufacturing and ID management of smart ID cards for different countries. So it's primarily Belgium, Portugal, Israel. We do that also for some countries in Africa. We do a lot of the passport management and manufacturing for different countries. We do also a lot of the election enrollment systems, mainly in Africa. So the UN is practically our biggest customer over there. So we do a lot of that. Having said that, this is representing about 30% of our business. The main part of our business is what we would classify as goods identification, so goods ID. This is really all about supply chain solutions, but I'll explain a bit more about in details about what I mean by that. We are about 1,300 people now in the group, dealing with people ID and goods ID. Majority of them are from the goods ID division. We are, I would say, originally a pan-European company, so based mainly in Europe, also in South Africa. But we have been acquired by Panasonic a couple of years ago. So we are part of their B2B division. Their main objective was really to become the global leader of supply chain solutions. So they're looking for a good partner to acquire, and then at the end of the day, I would say we agreed for them to buy us. And since then, we already have a global presence. So we expanded our solutions from Europe also to primarily Japan and the US. But we have really a global presence now with Panasonic. So that's who we are in a nutshell. And we are trying to address mainly three different challenges within the supply chain. So our main goal is really to try and achieve agile fulfillment within the supply chain. So really to optimize different processes within the different parts of the supply chain to achieve a more efficient and a more accurate fulfillment within the supply chain. By doing that, also providing full end-to-end visibility within the supply chain. And I will explain a bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. But this is really a key part of our solutions, is to enable an end-to-end real-time visibility of what is happening within the supply chain. And of course, whilst we have all the data and all the events during the supply chain, what is also important for us is to achieve traceability. So traceability to be compliant, to ensure brand protection. But again, I'll give you a bit of more examples towards the end of the presentation for that. So the challenges that visibility and traceability has within the supply chain, there are a lot of them. And we are trying to address the solutions, with the solutions that we have, those different challenges. So we have different steps within the supply chain, different stations, all the way from manufacturing throughout the supply chain, the warehouse, the transportation, all the way to the consumer eventually. And because of the IT complexity that there is today within supply chain, it's very, very challenging really to be able to answer the different questions that we really want to answer. So do we have the right product? Do we have the right ID on the product? Do we have the right product on the right shelf? Do we have the right quantity on the shelf? Are we providing the right level of service that we want to our consumers? So those are the different challenges that we have that we are trying to address with our solutions. So as I've mentioned, the biggest challenge that we see now with our customers is that the supply chain is becoming really, really complicated. So if 10, 15 years ago, the supply chain was relatively simply structured, today it's very complicated. So you have different stakeholders, you have a lot of different players, so you have a lot of DCs and consolidation sites, you have different 3PLs, and supply chain is also very dynamic. So if you have peak time like Christmas and Easter, all of a sudden you have a 3PL that you're using only for 3 months, you have sheds that you're using only for 1 month. So to be able to get all that information and to get the efficiency of the warehouse and different stakeholders is becoming very, very challenging. So really the supply chain optimization is becoming crucial and very complicated. Today's organization see the supply chain optimization really as a competitive advantage. So to be able to be competitive, the supply chain needs to be optimized. So the solution, the different processes needs to be really optimized all the way from manufacturing to the warehouse, the different processes, which I'll touch a few of them in a minute, but all the way to the consumer. So eliminating waste, driving towards collaboration within the supply chain, having real-time information of what is happening. All of that is driving towards supply chain optimization, which really these days, because of the complexity of the supply chain, is driving towards competitive advantage. So at Zetes, we do a lot of things. We are touching a lot of different elements within the supply chain. The way that our solutions are structured are as follows. So we have our layer of technology. So really, this is where we start. So we are in the heart. We are integrators of different technologies to different solutions within the supply chain. So we are experts in different technologies, all the way from voice picking to image technology. I'll give you a few examples of that later on. If it's RFID, if it's traditional barcodes, so we do different variety of technologies to drive different processes within the supply chain to achieve a more efficient and a more accurate process within the supply chain. Then on top of that, we have the layer of our execution solutions. So we have a suite of different software solutions in different parts of the supply chain. So we start at the manufacturing, where we would generate a serial number to an item. We would also manage all the marking and the packaging of the item itself. So really, this is where it starts for us to make sure that we give the identity to the product, but also starting the parent-child relationship. Then again, to achieve traceability and visibility throughout the supply chain. We have our warehouse solutions, which I will explain a bit more on that. So we have different solutions for different business processes within the warehouse. Then we have our Chronos solution, which is an EPOD solution. So it's a classic proof of delivery solution. So all the way from loading the goods to the truck, to the lorry, to the van, whatever it might be, to delivery of the goods, and of course having the proof of that delivery. We have our Iris solution, which is on one hand it has a technician, a field technician application. So that would be the guys that are going and they have, for example, autoclass and companies like that needs to go and deliver, and they are also selling from a truck. So Krispy Kreme is another example of our customer where they are selling actually donuts from their van. They have a specific stock within the van that they need to manage, so they manage the stock within the van itself. And then we have our Athena solution, which is our in-store solution. So we manage all the stock movement within the store itself, but also providing services like click and collect and so on. But then what is really important for us is that all the information, all the data that we are collecting throughout the supply chain, might it be from a Zetes solution or a non-Zetes solution, everything would be going into our Olympus platform, and the Olympus platform is really the data collaboration platform. So this is, if you want, the data lake that we have. And we are aggregating and managing the data in the Olympus platform, which then enables us to have a lot of different applications on top of that are really adding value from an end-to-end visibility point of view. So we would have our purchase order, for example, visibility solution, which is tracking and tracing in real time purchase order throughout the supply chain. We would have our asset tracking, so your cages and your pallets. So we would have a solution that would track the assets throughout the supply chain as well. And of course, our traceability solution as well, that, for example, pharmaceuticals, when they have their recall management, if they need to understand exactly each serial number, where was it sent to, by whom, we can also manage that. So touching a little bit on the warehouse itself. So as I mentioned, in a warehouse, we have different solutions to the different business processes within the warehouse itself. So our Zetes Media solution, as I mentioned before, it sits within our execution solution. Now, in terms of a positioning point of view, we are not a WMS. We are also not really a WCS. We really sit in the between. So we are an execution layer, a logistics execution layer. So normally we would not really manage the stock within the warehouse, but we would manage everything that is executed within the warehouse. So we are sort of the extension to the WMS, where we excel is really interfacing and integrating different technologies to the WMS processes, where traditionally it's very complicated to them and or expensive. And this is really where we sit. So if looking in the warehouse, we would really touch with our solutions almost every business process within the warehouse, starting at inbound, shipping, of course, put away, replenishment, picking, all the different solutions, all the different business processes that you have in the warehouse. We have a software solution, which in most cases is also enabled by specific technologies. So just showing you a few examples of technologies that we use to enable the different processes. So if you're looking at the order picking is always a hot topic. The reason is that is probably representing most of the workforce within the warehouse is picking operators. So a lot of the cost is associated to that, which means that every efficiency and accuracy gains would actually translate in a very quick return of investment. And what we're trying to do is really marry different technologies to the right process. So we all the way from a very straightforward, simple voice picking. So I'm guessing that a lot of you already heard about voice picking. So instead of having a screen or a pen and a paper, to be an operator with a headset, that we direct him to the location and tell him how much to pick, and he would say back, okay, I picked 5 or less than what I have. But also nowadays, the solutions are becoming a bit more complicated because of the e-commerce, because the orders themselves are becoming a bit more, non-traditional. So we would actually look at the orders that we are getting from the WMS, optimize them, aggregate different picking orders together to optimize the order itself, and then use different technologies to do the picking and the sorting at the same time. So voice picking, for example, and pick to light. So we would send an operator to a location, pick 10 of a specific item, and then using pick to light, putting the right quantities to the right place, meaning to the right order or to the right end customer at the end of the day. Another technology that we are using in warehouses. So this is typical for 3PLs. So 3PLs, when they are getting a lot of goods and into the warehouse and needs to be sorted. So traditionally, what is happening? You have operators that are standing at a conveyor. A lot of boxes are arriving. They need to pick up the box, need to see the label of that specific box, and then normally they need to put it in a specific pallet and then going into put away, for example. So we're using, in this case, a Panasonic projection technology, and what we're doing is across the conveyor, we are projecting a box number. So we're scanning, of course, the box at the beginning, and then we're projecting a number on that box that all along the conveyor, and then each operator knows which one he needs to pick. So if I'm number 1, my colleague is number 2, and 3, and 4, and so on. So I need to only look at a projected number on the box itself, which of course facilitates the sorting very, very quickly. And it's so the return of investment on that one is that obviously you need less people in such a sorting line, but of course all the accuracy is becoming much more, the process is much more accurate. Another technology that we are using for processes in the warehouse would be imaging. So this technology that we have is really taking into different processes where we have it for shipping, we have it for loading, but we also taking into inventory. So inventory is also most of the time a costly process. So you need to have people that are doing that. If you need cherry pickers to hire to make sure that you be able to count in the high levels as well. So what we looked into here is using this technology because we did, play with the usual drones and everything, but operationally, it's very, very complicated, flight time and stability and so on. So we've built this solution, which is on a pallet, which means that every forklift can just pick it up and take it in the warehouse. We have mounted different cameras on that, and whilst moving in the different aisles, we are doing the cycle count or the inventory process of the warehouse. So, which of course, you don't need any more cherry pickers in terms of number of operators. It's decreasing dramatically. The time that it takes is decreasing dramatically. The accuracy is, of course, very high because there's no human intervention here. So very quickly, we're able to make all the inventory and count all the different pallets throughout the warehouse using this type of technology. So again, this is an example of a different process within the warehouse, which normally is labor heavy and very much prone to mistakes, using a technology like imaging to improve that specific process. So really, what we are trying to do at Zetes with our solution is synchronizing the digital flows with the physical flows to make sure that we break the silos of the different stakeholders within the supply chain to enable a more efficient and a more connected supply chain. So looking at, for example, visibility of what we mean by that, of breaking the silos and driving towards collaboration. So our visibility layer, so again, it's the same, using the same technology that I've shown before, so using different technologies, we're using our execution solutions in the warehouse, but also using third-party solution, obviously, because our aim is really to take a customer and to connect all their stakeholders to one place, to one platform. So by doing that, we would use either a Zetes solution that is generating or gathering the data, or a third-party solution as well. And again, all the data would go up to our Olympus collaboration platform. Now, it can be events that are just pallets that are being scanned as they go out of the warehouse, but it can be also an IoT device. So we have a customer that is shipping chilled food throughout the supply chain, and they have an IoT tag on the pallet itself. So it's a tag that is applied to the label, to the pallet, and it's collecting the information about the temperature. So we are gathering that information again into our Olympus platform. And then on our presentation layer, we are able to tell the customer, not only where the pallet is and is it arriving on time, is it arriving in full, but also, for example, if the temperature was respected across the supply chain. And if there was any problem at any point of the supply chain, we would be able to pinpoint the problem exactly to where it happened. So really what we're trying to achieve with the visibility layer is to tell the retailer or the customer 3 different time perspectives of the supply chain. What happened in the past? So this is something that would be able to go down all the way to the item level, to the SSCC label itself. And if they're tracing also item and boxes all the way to the box level or the item level to understand what happened. So managing recalls as an example. So a specific batch number to understand at which store you have it. But also, more importantly, what is happening in real time in the supply chain. And this is really the key, to understand in real time of the issues that are happening. And not what is happening today, it's 3 days later that you understand that you had an issue and you had to investigate, scrolling through different Excel spreadsheets. It's understanding in real time what is happening in supply chain. But also to be a bit proactive and to understand what will happen in the near future in the supply chain. So really, if, for example, we are supposed to get an order on a Wednesday or 2 p.m. o'clock in the afternoon, and we know on a Tuesday that it should have left the DC before the store at Tuesday at 5 p.m. If it didn't happen, we already let the customer know ahead of the time, understanding that there is an issue, so they have enough time to take care of the issue and try to rectify the problem. So what we see with visibility, we did a survey within almost 500 different supply chain managers across Europe, and the survey is really showing that on one hand, a lot of the retailers are saying, or the supply chain managers, not only for retail companies, are saying that the supply chain is becoming very, very complicated very quickly. So it's becoming for them very difficult to have visibility in what is happening. At the same time, visibility is becoming very important for them to achieve an optimized supply chain, but they can't really achieve that because of the problem they have. And the main problem that what is common to all the supply chain managers, effectively, it's not that they don't have the data. The data is out there, but it's a problem of data and systems. So a lot of the customers I'm speaking to, the supply chain is so complicated that they have 10 different WMSs, they have multiple 3PLs with their own WMSs, with their own systems. They have temporary 3PLs that they don't have any access to the data on a permanent basis. So at the end of the day, it's becoming very, very complicated to get harmonization of all the data from the different systems that they have. And what we are trying to achieve with our solution is really harmonization of that data. So what we are providing to the customer with our visibility layer is really connecting the different stakeholders all the way from procurement down to supply chain stakeholders like 3PLs and DCs and so on. And we're building that into one solution that is on one hand, so it's 3 components. We have a dashboard that is providing to the customer a real-time understanding of what is happening in the supply chain at any given moment. Then there's an element of reports that enables them to drill down into the data to understand in details what is happening. So if an order was rejected, to go down to the box level to understand what box was rejected and why. Is it expired? Is it not respecting the temperature? So they can see exactly where the problem is. But also alerting. So, and this is very important from a real-time visibility point of view. Again, if something goes wrong, they know about it immediately, and they don't know about it 3 days later. So that's our concept of visibility. What we are trying to achieve by that is really to understand what should have happened, what was planned, what is actually happening, compare the two, and let the customer know if there's any difference between the two in real time. That's really what we're trying to achieve with the visibility layer. What are the benefits of that? There are a lot of benefits to the customers that we have. At the end of the day, it's about on-shelf availability. It's about reducing waste. It's about reducing the stock. So if before customers had visibility, they didn't have a lot of trust in the system, which means that they overstock. They had stock within the Cs, within the back of the stores to make sure that their shelf are always full. But now with visibility, we see that customers are reducing a lot, for example, that the stock levels that they need in order to achieve that, because there's a lot of trust within the supply chain. We see a lot of improvement in the stock accuracy within the stores. And of course, I don't need to tell you that, but these numbers, these percentages are a lot of money for the retailers and the consumers and the customers at the end of the day. So that was more from a visibility point of view. So visibility is really looking at the present and looking also in the future. From a traceability point of view, it's really more looking in the past, looking at what happened, helping to achieve compliance, to achieve brand protection to our customers. And what we're doing here is really, as I mentioned before, our solution starts in manufacturing. And what we're trying to do is give a serial number to each one of the products, but then to keep that parent-child relationship across the supply chain, even if it would change in between. So even if, for example, a product goes to a cross-dock solution or consolidation process, we would understand that that specific item moved from one pallet to the other. So we would maintain that parent-child relationship across the supply chain, so both upstream and downstream the supply chain, to ultimately achieve the traceability. Now we see that with our customers, traditionally it was a bit more a compliance requirement. So we have customers, for example, that are dealing with explosives. So they had a requirement to understand exactly from each explosive devices, where are they, where have been manufactured, where they're going. From a regulation point of view, we have the same, for example, for high-end goods. Louis Vuitton is another customer where we have the traceability of handbags. So they know all the different handbags, when they're manufactured, where they've been shipped, all the way to the consumer. And we see indeed that trend that is going now from traceability, not only for compliance reasons, but also all the way to the consumer. So consumers these days are with all the Amazon effect, we are so used to have all the information in our hands to understand exactly where the delivery is it coming in the next half an hour or not? So the traceability is becoming also important from a consumer point of view. So we see more and more customers that are driving towards also to consumers' goods traceability. So we see more and more requirement in the market to understand exactly the identity of products. And at the end of the day, it's for both the company itself, so our customers, that they want to understand exactly what is the goods, what it consists of, what are the different items that are within the product itself. They want to be able to keep and maintain that contact with the end consumer at the end of the day, both from keeping that contact from keep sending them different marketing materials, but also from a compliance point of view. So, for example, from a warranty point of view, or to tell if there's an issue. So there's a lot of noise in the market, for example, from Whirlpool with their tumble dryers that are catching, going on fire. So to be able to understand from a company point of view, which are my end customers really, to be able to reach out to them in a more efficient way is becoming more and more important to different companies. So we see definitely a trend of enhanced traceability requirement, and we see more and more that requirement of the connected supply chain, of collaborating between stakeholders to achieve exactly that, to achieve the efficiency, the visibility, and the traceability throughout the supply chain. So at Zetes, we have you'd recognize some of the logos on the slides. We are helping to enable collaborative supply chain from achieving better processes throughout the supply chain, if it's on the execution layer, but also on the visibility and traceability layer of the supply chain. Any questions?